Well, Israel's objectives are very clear. First of all, this extremist government believes that it has the impunity and the protection to be able to expel the Palestinians or destroy them in order to create the dream of a greater Israel. That is the first and primary objective. And the secondary objective is to establish its dominance over the whole Middle East so that the Arab world is no longer in a position to challenge Israel in the future. Uh, these are the two objectives, and this is how Mr. Netanyahu is seeking to promote these objectives. Uh, a third and perhaps critical objective for Netanyahu is to continue the war so that he doesn't have to face the criminal charges which are against him and that his government can survive. Because the day the war ends, the internal process of accountability to which he is going to be subjected uh, is probably going to lose office and he may face prison. So it is in his interest and in the interest of his extremist allies to continue this war as long as possible. So I think those are three elements of the Israeli approach that we should be aware of. Well, Israel has violated the sovereignty of every one of its neighbors in this conflict. I think the attack on Qatar, however, is unique in the sense that Qatar was the one offering its mediation in order to secure a settlement, including the release of the so-called Israeli hostages. Now, if you are attacking the mediator and the negotiating teams from the other side, it is obvious you don't want peace. You want the war to continue. And this is a logical conclusion that Israel and Netanyahu in particular does not want peace. And he has obviously done this even without the permission of the Trump administration, from at least from what has been said by the White House spokesperson. This is not something with which the Americans are happy either. But Netanyahu feels he has impunity, yeah, that he has the Israeli lobby in America protecting him, that the Trump administration will not penalize him, and therefore he is not accountable to anybody. The Security Council is blocked by the American veto, and the Arab and Muslim countries are not in a position militarily to attack Israel or to go to war. So he feels he has a completely free hand. But, eventually, this is going to redound on Israel. Netanyahu will go sooner or later, but Israel's image will now be that of a rogue state, a outlaw state. And sooner or later, I mean, its acceptance by the world is going to become much more difficult. Support for the idea of a Palestinian state, even if one is not established on the ground, the concept of a Palestinian state lives politically and is going to be enlarged at the forthcoming UN General Assembly when so many Western powers which supported Israel are going to recognize a Palestinian state. So for the long term, this is not going to be good for the Israelis either. But it is Netanyahu's war. It is the war of the Israeli extremists. And the world has to find ways and means to stop them. Of course, the principal way would be to convince the Trump administration to exercise its leverage with Israel and Netanyahu lift its veto to penalize this government for doing what it's doing. But our Arab and Muslim brothers have to be also bold. You know, in 1973, after the 73 war, they imposed the oil embargo. It was first the Arab oil embargo, then it became an OPEC oil embargo, and they had brought the Western world to its knees because of the oil embargo. And we were able to negotiate from a position of strength at that time. That's how the Egyptians got back to Sinai. But so far, the Muslim world has not taken the hard decisions. Oil embargo, trade embargo, a call for an arms embargo by all countries against Israel, questioning Israel's membership of the United Nations. I think these are all steps that we can mobilize for, we can impose. Even without the United States, we can do it. But we have to be bold enough to be able to do it. But so far, the Arab and Muslim world has not generated that kind of not displayed that kind of boldness that is required in such dire circumstances for the Muslim and Arab world. I think they can rely on American protection against anybody except Israel. The US will offer support against Iran, for example, or against any other power that seeks to destabilize the Gulf countries. But Israel seems to have impunity. The US itself feels helpless to respond to this kind of Israeli behavior, which defies the wishes of even the American government. No, I don't think that the Americans feel that they have ditched their Arab friends because they want a Middle East in which there is peace between Israel and the Arab countries. This is the ideal scenario for America. But the Arabs do not want a situation where they make peace with Israel, where Israel seeks to dominate the region and to act as the policeman of the region. They want an equal accord. They thought that by doing the Abraham Accords, they were doing Israel a favor. They were doing the US a favor. But it seems that the Israeli interpretation is that you normalize with us, but will you normalize with us under our domination? And I don't think that countries like Saudi Arabia, for example, will accept Israeli domination. Certainly, other countries in the region, Iran will not accept it, Pakistan will not accept it, Turkey will not accept it. So in the whole region and the wider Arab and Muslim world, although we may not have the means of responding to Israel militarily at this time, but none of us are going to accept a Middle East order which is dominated by Israel and Israel's friends, and Israel's friends include India. No, the mechanisms are there. I mean, first and foremost, there's the Security Council. And I hope that Qatar will bring this issue to the Security Council. But in the Security Council, so long as the United States exercises its veto against any action against Israel, the Security Council will not be able to act effectively. There is the International Court of Justice, but that takes a bit too long to reach judgments and conclusions. And again, implementation of the ICJ's judgments has to be enforced by the Security Council. So we come back to the Security Council. There is the International Criminal Court. Israel is not a member, but it can be taken to the criminal court under international treaties. But again, enforcement of the judgments of the International Criminal Court, the Criminal Court has declared Netanyahu as a war criminal and indicted him along with some of his extremist cabinet members. But again, this has not produced the desired results because many countries have not implemented those decisions. And even the ICC has come under attack from the United States. The mechanisms are there, but there has to be a will on the part of the international community to impose and enforce the decisions of these international mechanisms. And in these mechanisms, Israel is protected, particularly by the US and some of its other Western friends. Well, it is, you cannot make a judgment as to when they informed Qatar, whether it was a few seconds before the attack or hours before the attack. In any case, Qatar obviously was taken by surprise when the attack took place. But it is obvious that despite this kind of rogue behavior on the part of Israel and Netanyahu, the US has not been able to pressurize the Israeli government to stop the war in Gaza, where President Trump has declared he wants a ceasefire in Gaza, but they have not been able to convince Netanyahu to stop. And this is an indication of the influence of the Israeli lobby in the United States, where politicians of all stripes are afraid to take positions against Israel because they fear that this will be the end of their political careers because of the power and influence of the Israeli lobby inside the United States. So that is the flaw in the American democratic system, which allows the influence of such a lobby to exercise stranglehold on American decision making. Well, I imagine that they have to do something. When your country is attacked, you have to respond. Pakistan, for instance, is very fortunate that we have the capability to respond when we were attacked by India in a similar unilateral fashion. Unfortunately, Qatar does not have the size and capacity to respond to Israel in the same way that the Iranians, for example, did, or that Pakistan responded to India. But they can go to the Security Council. I think they must go to the Security Council and raise the issue and call for a condemnation of the attack that has happened on them. A mediating power in the Gaza conflict, I think, it is the height of the treasonous behavior of the Israeli occupiers to attack the mediators in this way. So they have a right to go and call for condemnation by the international community. But in my view, and if I were to be sitting in the councils of decision-making in the Arab and Muslim world, I would say it is time now that we decide to impose a trade embargo, oil embargo, an arms embargo, and question Israel's right to be present in international forums like the United Nations. We must kick them out. Absolutely. Absolutely. You see what the Indians did. This is they have taken this from the Israeli handbook of trying to respond to so-called alleged terrorism by doing anything that they want to attack another country. But we taught the Indians a lesson. And I think that it is time for the Arabs to stand up as well and confront Israel. Even if they don't have the military power, they have the economic power to respond to the Israelis. And unless they respond, their claim to be sovereign, independent states is in question now if they do not respond. Well, I don't think that Hamas will get much leverage from this particular strike. Hamas's leverage arises from its survival. They have survived 2 years of Israeli onslaughts and now continue to be present. So I think Hamas's decisions, if Hamas decides to make peace and the terms on which it makes peace, I think these are political decisions which Hamas will make with the advice of other Arab friends, Arab or other Muslim country friends, as to what are the terms on which the ceasefire should happen. The Israelis wanted to disarm and surrender. I don't think they will disarm or surrender, but there are political solutions that could be found where Hamas defers exercise of power in Gaza and so forth in order to get a peace agreement. I don't think this particular attack will have material impact on Hamas's position. That position has to be evolved by Hamas in consultation with the Arab neighbors and friends. Well, as I mentioned earlier, I think Israel three objectives. One, continue the war to keep Netanyahu in power. Second, expel the Israelis or compel the Palestinians, expel the Palestinians from Gaza and compel them to accept a greater Israel, which is the dream of the extremists. And thirdly, Israel's imposition of its dominance over the Middle East region to counter Iran, to counter Turkey, and to counter Saudi Arabia. Those are, I think, the end goals that the Israelis of all stripes have in mind in this campaign. I think Mr. Trump desires peace because he wants to be seen as a peacemaker globally. But I think he's constrained by the Israeli lobby. The power of the Israeli lobby constrains him from imposing peace on Netanyahu.